Israel has launched a barrage of strikes on southern Lebanon as cross-border tensions continue to rise.
Far-right and centre-right form a majority on a vote in the European Parliament for the first time. Keeping the lights on and the heating going, EU pledges more winter aid for Ukraine.
Israel has launched a barrage of strikes on southern Lebanon as cross-border tensions continue to rise. The attack follows a similar assault by Hezbollah on northern Israel early on Thursday, in which Israel says 2 of its soldiers were killed. The exchanges of fire come after 2 days of targeted explosions of handheld devices killed dozens and injured hundreds across Lebanon and Syria. Hezbollah's leader Hassan Nasrallah called the attack, which has largely been blamed on Israel, a severe blow.
العدو تجاوز في هذه العملية كل الضوابط والقوانين والخطوط الحمراء. لم يكترث لأي شيء على الإطلاق، لا أخلاقيا ولا إنسانيا ولا قانونيا.
In a joint press conference with President of the Palestinian Authority Mahmoud Abbas in Madrid, Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sánchez called for restraint.
Lo veníamos comentando el presidente Abbas y yo mismo en el Líbano, por lo que tenemos que hacer un nuevo y firme llamamiento a la contención, a la desescalada, a la coexistencia pacífica entre países, en definitiva, a la paz.
It comes as Israel's defense minister declared the start of a new phase of war.
The European Parliament has recognized Edmundo González, the candidate of the opposition, as the legitimate president of Venezuela. The chamber rejected the official results of the presidential election held at the end of July and condemned the repression and attacks on civil society under Venezuelan President Nicolás Maduro.
And it is adopted.
This is a step further compared to EU member states, which did not recognize Maduro as a legitimate president, but neither González is the winner. 309 MEPs voted in favor, among them the members of the EPP, the largest political group in the parliament.
Ese reconocimiento a lo evidente, lo que las actas electorales que se han distribuido fuera de Venezuela demuestra claramente la victoria de Edmundo González y de la oposición democrática ante este régimen dictatorial.
The European People's Party voted together with the groups further to the right, the European Conservatives and Reformists, Patriots for Europe and Europe of Sovereign Nations, forming a new majority in the parliament for the first time in this legislature. The Liberals also generally condemned Maduro's persecutions and rejected the official results, but the Renew Europe group abstained because they did not want to vote with the far right. Socialists, Greens and the left voted against.
Ninguno de los 27 países de la Unión Europea lo ha hecho, ni la Unión Europea lo ha hecho, y de hecho de toda la comunidad internacional, solo 2 países, Panamá y Ecuador, han realizado este reconocimiento. Nosotros tenemos indicadores sobre el resultado, pero no tenemos todo el cuerpo electoral. Y nos parece que no somos un órgano legítimo para reconocer un resultado electoral cuando no tenemos todas las actas y todos los datos.
The resolution also requests an international arrest warrant for Nicolás Maduro for crimes against humanity on the basis of, quote, grave violations of human rights.
Como nuevo ministro del Poder Popular.
As the winter approaches, millions of Ukrainians have been left with limited access to electricity. The country is suffering from major power cuts on a daily basis. President von der Leyen announced on Thursday new EU support for Ukraine's energy security to keep people warm and the economy running. She also announced her visit to Kiev on Friday.
We will make an additional amount of close to 160 million euros available for this winter. This includes 60 million euros in humanitarian aid for shelters and heaters, for example. And it includes around 100 million euros for repair works and renewables. And these 100 million euros come from the proceeds of the immobilized Russian assets in the European Union. Because it is only right that Russia pays for the destruction it caused. We know that more is needed, so we must keep transferring part of the proceeds from immobilized Russian assets to Ukraine's energy resilience.
Approximately half of Ukraine's energy infrastructure has been destroyed, removing 9 gigawatts of power generation capacity. The EU Commission is now aiming to restore and export 4.5 gigawatts to Ukraine. But the Russian war in Ukraine also has consequences for energy prices in the EU. In a letter sent to the Commission President, the Greek Prime Minister called for European ways to address the effects of the war on the energy market.
We know that we have in Europe, compared to the rest of the world, structurally too high energy prices. And one very clear goal of the new Commission, but also described in the Draghi report, is to lower structurally the energy prices.
Once again, von der Leyen underlined that renewable energy and energy efficiency must play a big role in the EU's answer.
Despite Kyiv's attempts to draw away Russian forces from Pokrovsk with a surprise incursion into Kursk region, Moscow is still prioritizing its efforts in eastern Ukraine, where their offensive does not seem to ease up anytime soon. The battle for Pokrovsk started a month ago when in mid-February Ukrainian forces withdrew from Avdiivka. From there, they have been retreating towards Pokrovsk, a major logistics base and transport hub for Ukraine's armed forces, where multiple roads and rail lines intersect. Since the first breakthrough of Ukrainian defense lines in April near the village of Ocheretine, Russian forces have advanced to over 20 kilometers towards Pokrovsk. In early September, Ukraine transferred more forces to this area, but Russia hasn't moved any of its own away towards Kursk, pushing for more advances towards Pokrovsk while also threatening to encircle a large grouping of Ukrainian forces south of the main area. The Russians are pressing from two directions. They swallowed up the town of Novohorodivka and are pushing forward from the southeast and from Ukrainsk, which fell a few days ago. If Ukraine loses Pokrovsk, it would be much harder to move troops, provisions and ammunition to other parts of an overstretched front line here in eastern Ukraine.
Before the elections on the 26th of October, the Russia-friendly government of Georgia yet took another step further away from Brussels and adopted a draft law on family values and protection of minors, which is an anti-LGBTQ maneuver. Meanwhile, opposition parties are divided on the matter, trying to avoid loss of potential votes from conservative electors. They do not openly claim the initiative to be undemocratic, but rather untimely. Mamuka Dinaradze, chairman of the ruling party Georgian Dream, says that a legislative change was needed as a countermeasure to LGBT propaganda. In 2 or 3 generations, it can have such harmful consequences, he claims, that no conqueror has been able to achieve for centuries, and stresses that same-sex marriage cannot be allowed. At the plenary session, the adoption of this controversial law passed without disruption, with 84 in favor and 0 against. Parliamentary opposition was not present, as many of them have been boycotting ever since the adoption of the law on foreign agents earlier this year. Human rights defenders argue that the goal is to cover up real problems and create another barrier to European integration.
ხო, ეს არის კლასიკური პროპაგანდისტული, რუსული პროპაგანდისტული შაბლონი, როცა ხელისუფლება იგონებს არარსებულ პრობლემას, ის რაც მოსახლეობის უმრავლესობისთვის არ არის პრობლემა, ქმნის ამ პრობლემას და შემდეგ პირდება, რომ ამ პრობლემას გადაჭრის. სინამდვილეში საქართველოს მოსახლეობის უმრავლესობისთვის სასიცოცხლოდ მნიშვნელოვანი სხვა პრობლემები არსებობს ქვეყანაში.
Civil society groups state that this law resembles Russian legislation that encroaches on freedom of speech while also legalizing censorship.
რისკენაც რუსეთი მიდიოდა 10 წლის განმავლობაში, ქართულმა ოცნებამ პირდაპირ ასეთი კანონპროექტი შემოგთავაზა. რუსეთი ამისკენ მიდიოდა ნაბიჯ-ნაბიჯ და ქართულმა ოცნებამ პირდაპირ ახლა რაც აქვს რუსეთს, ის მოგვიტანა დღეს და მიიღეს პარლამენტარებმა ეს კანონი. ეს არის სამარცხვინო დამოკიდებულება, პირდაპირ ვიტყვი.
The draft law consists of 13 articles, addresses marriage, adoption, medical procedures, and many other issues. Also, May 17, the International Day Against Gay, Bi, and Transphobia has been designated as a day of purity of the family and respect for parents.
More than 5,000 firefighters are battling 90 reported fires in northern Portugal, where 7 people have died and hundreds of thousands are in danger. 4 firefighters and 3 civilians have died in the country's worst outbreak of fires in recent years. Portugal continues to mobilize its forces and resources to combat the wildfires that have been raging for several days around the western city of Aveiro. Emergency services have reported 90 incidents in mainland Portugal, with 17 fires currently raging and 60 approaching their end stages. The fire in Pesigueira de Vuga is still active, with more than 500 firefighters on the ground. The weather is set to aid in combating the fires, with the Portuguese Institute for the Sea and Atmosphere predicting lower temperatures, heavy clouds and afternoon showers in central Portugal on Thursday. UN Chief Antonio Guterres said during a press conference that it is clear that the worsening of the fires have a direct relationship with the worsening of the climate crisis. The Vatican has approved continued pilgrimages to a southern Bosnian village where children reported visions of the Virgin Mary, despite previous doubts from local bishops and concerns about conflicting messages from the visionaries. The decision overlooks worries about the economic interests that have made Medjugorje a popular religious tourism destination. Unlike other established Catholic sanctuaries, the alleged apparitions at Medjugorje have never been declared authentic by the Vatican.